Hi, it's Katie Mackenzie, mortgage professional of Mackenzie Mortgage with TMG, the Mortgage Group, and your host of I Love Vancouver Real Estate. Thank you for taking the time to be with us today. It's my pleasure to be here today with Adam Lawrenson of Adlaw Appraisals Limited. Adlaw Appraisals is a full-service real estate appraisal company located in sunny Tsawwassen, and they cover the greater Vancouver area, including Chilliwack and Whistler. They have an extensive client base, including mortgage brokers, banks, credit unions, law firms, accountants, investors, relocation companies, realtors, and homeowners. Founded in 2010 by Adam himself, Adlaw Appraisals has grown and expanded to become a trusted partner with individuals and organizations throughout British Columbia, looking to make more informed decisions when it comes to real estate, citing principles of speed, accuracy, and integrity. Adam, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. So most of us can safely assume, what an appraiser does, what you might do, but tell us in your words what your average day or week looks like.
Sure, yeah. So we have 4 appraisers on our team and we have 2 office staff. So what we do is we take these requests from either mortgage brokers, banks, law firms, realtors, investors. We take these requests for appraisals and we allocate resources. So we send the right appraiser that can do it the quickest, who has the most competence, and we just power through as many appraisals as we can in a day and make sure that our clients are satisfied the whole way through.
So what accreditation does someone need to become an appraiser?
So to become an appraiser in Canada, you have to go through one of 2 designated bodies. I am an accredited appraiser with the Appraisal Institute of Canada. And most banks now require you to have a designation. Mm-hmm. So you either have to sign the report or co-sign the report with that designation. It shows that you've done the experience. Usually there's 1 or 2 years applied experience. There's 6 to 12 courses that you need to take. There is an interview, there's an exam, and it really shows that you are competent in what you're doing. So there's 2 designations that they provide. One's an AACI designation, mm-hmm. The other is a CRA. They're both well respected amongst the industry, and I have the AACI designation.
Is there any specific accreditations to BC or for specific styles of properties?
Yes, there is. So the designations are national. And an AACI appraiser can do any type of property, including commercial, industrial, strata warehouse, as well as residential. And a CRA is limited to residential only, up to a maximum of 4 units. So they can do a 4-plex, okay. They can't do a 5-plex. Okay. And they can't do anything that's income driven, such as a strata commercial, retail, warehouse, office, that sort of thing.
How does an appraiser determine value? So, I've seen 1,001 appraisals in my lifetime as a lender. For our listeners, how do you determine the value?
Sure. So we inspect the property. That's number one thing, is that we need to understand exactly what we are appraising. So we take the size, age, location, any positive or negative influences, and we compare that to what's selling in the industry. And that's called the direct comparison approach to value. And that mirrors what any buyer would do in the market. So when you're looking to buy a property, you see 3 properties for sale, and you're going to offer the price that is most comparable or that makes the most sense given those market conditions. So we put all that information into an appraisal report. We make some adjustments for the differences, and that gives us a range of value for the subject. And then we use our appraiser judgment, and we rely on the best sale to determine the value of the subject property.
So how does that then differ in an appraiser valuation, what you do? How does that differ from an inspection or a realtor evaluation of a property?
Sure, yeah. So there's lots of people that are competent to provide a value of your property. Now, an inspector doesn't provide a value at all. An inspection or a property inspector simply describes the components of a property, so the roof, windows, heating system, and discusses their condition. Are they good, average, or needs repair? Mm-hmm. They don't discuss value at all. The 3 other ones that you mentioned are the tax authority, so BC assessment. Mm-hmm. So they do give you a value. It's based on a July 1st, 2016, or at least this tax year was based on a July 1st, 2016 valuation date. So it's already By the time they get it January 1st, it's 6 months old. It's done on a mass appraisal basis. So it's done not on an individual basis like an appraiser would do. It's done on a mass basis. So there's high room for error.
Yes.
And the appraisers at BC Assessment don't go into the property. So they're using algorithms, mass appraisal techniques. And the value won't be as accurate as a realtor or an appraiser.
And that is for the purposes of determining what your property taxes are as well.
Yeah.
Not for lending purposes or determining value for business dealings or divorce, those kinds of things.
Exactly. It is strictly a value to help distribute the tax base fairly amongst a certain jurisdiction. So the most important thing with your assessment is that it's fair and equitable. So if you went up 30%, as long as everyone in your area also went up 30%, your taxes shouldn't increase at the same rate. That's kind of a whole nother podcast on taxes.
I know you wrote an article on that though.
So yeah, we can talk about that near the end if you want. A real estate agent also provides a very accurate valuation. Often a realtor has their finger on the pulse of the real estate market.
Yeah.
The only downside with a realtor's opinion of value is that it can be biased. And realtors are the first to admit that. It's because they are trying to get the listing. So, they might be unconsciously biased in an optimistic fashion. Where they really think this thing is very good, and if they get the right buyer at the right time, they can sell it for $1 million. Where the appraiser goes in, we do a full inspection, we are completely unbiased, and we determine what the property would sell for if placed on the market with a realtor for 0 to 90 days, what that property would sell for in the market. And we are completely unbiased, so we aren't going to lean to the higher side of the value or the lower side. We're kind of going to go right down the middle. Appraisers' value can be relied on by banks, lending institutions, and taxation authorities.
Yeah. I know in my position when we order them, quite commonly a client will make the comment to me that, oh, well, it is a bank appraisal. It's for the purposes of the mortgage. And I always stop to correct them to say the appraiser is independent of the lender. The appraiser will appraise for, Scotiabank, TD Bank, Royal Bank, any of the lenders. They're independent of the bank. So the appraiser does not have a vested interest in whether or not the mortgage goes through. They are purely just doing the valuation. So that's an important thing to note.
Yeah, banks back in the day did have their own appraisers. And they realized that there was some, collusion going on. And, the more business that they got, the more everyone kind of got paid. So they were quick to outsource that and have a completely 100% objective valuation done.
Well, now you have to get accepted to actually work as one of the favored appraisers on a bank list.
Yeah, we spoke about that earlier. So to work for Scotiabank, you have to go through a very lengthy approval process. Yeah. And it is it's brutal, and it took me probably 3 years to get on that list.
Yeah. Congrats.
Very happy.
So, I know I pretty much almost every day order appraisals for the purposes of mortgage financing, but why would someone approach you independently of that to order an appraisal?
So there's various reasons. One could be a divorce situation. So two partners are separating their assets and they need a fair market value as of a certain date. Litigation purposes. So if you are in a corporation or a partnership and you've purchased real estate and that real estate and that partnership or corporation is dissolving, you want to separate all the assets. An appraisal is important there. For taxation purposes. So if you switch your property from a primary residence to a rental property, it's important to get an appraisal done at that time. Because what happens, for example, if you buy a property for $500,000 and it goes up to $1 million, and then you start renting it out as a rental property, and say it goes up to $1.5 million, and then you sell it, the government's going to want money on the capital gains. But if they see that you bought it for $500 and you sold it for $1.5, they're going to try to get you for $1 million capital gain. But if you get that appraisal at $1 million when you rented it out, then you'll only be taxed on the $500,000. Lastly is a potential listing or private sale. So if you're looking to list your property and you're discussing it with a few realtors, it's always good to have an appraisal, an unbiased appraisal on hand that even the realtor can review and agree or disagree with. Or if you're going to sell between your family or to a friend or a neighbor, it's always good to have an appraisal on hand so you can determine that fair market value.
What sort of challenges or hurdles do you run into? I know that we've been back and forth on email at like 11 at night when peak times arise and we needed appraisals done in 24 hours and you're pulling your hair out. So are we, so are the clients. So, other than rush volumes, what other hurdles do you guys come into?
Yeah, we're fairly lucky. Although I started the company in 2010 and we incorporated, we didn't really start pushing until 2013. Really in January 2013. So there's kind of a slow build up. And I had the advantage of dealing strictly with mortgage brokers. Mortgage brokers tend to be very demanding because their clients are demanding of them to get things done quickly, to get things done properly, and that's passed off to the appraiser. So we basically were born in challenging times. And my first client was a mortgage broker, my second was a mortgage broker, and that's how we built our business, is really dealing with these mortgage brokers. We have up to 500 mortgage brokers now that we deal with. That's like dealing with 500 small businesses. So everyone knows small businesses run into issues. So our company is pretty good at handling all these hurdles that come to us from the broker channel. Most of these are rush files. So Katie, you might call me on Friday afternoon and say, hey, I just got this file on my desk. My clients are putting an offer in on this property. Is it going to come in at value? Because it's sold over asking. I have to answer that question. 2, can you get it done by tomorrow morning? So we've actually set up our company so that we can handle these rush files as if they're normal files. We have certain technologies that can get over that hurdle of timeliness. Appraisal management companies, so that's a third-party management system that's now in the appraisal game. They've caused some challenges for us as far as now it used to be where the bank would just call the appraiser or the mortgage broker would just call the appraiser. Now, sometimes the mortgage broker has to go through a third party, which when you get another, chef in the kitchen, sometimes it can cause some problems. So we're dealing with that as well, and that happened about 10 years ago, and it's constantly evolving. Private lending is a big source of funds now for mortgage brokers, especially with the new mortgage changes. So before we had to understand what 5 or 10 lenders wanted. Now we have to know what about 20 or 30 private lenders want as well in their appraisal.
So to explain that for our listeners a little bit, each of the lenders have different lending requirements or guidelines. So typically when we order an appraisal, we will state who the lender is so that you know what their guidelines are. So you're speaking to the fact that with different lenders or private lenders, you then have to find out what they're after as well, what information they absolutely need in that appraisal.
And that's important because if you have an appraisal that doesn't meet those lenders' requirements, it gets kicked back and it slows everything down. So that's another one. 4, value changes. So when the times were good and everything was going up, there wasn't so many issues. We're falling into a situation now where the market's kind of peaked in July, August, and now some things are closing now in January, or people are trying to refinance in January with their July 1st value that coincidentally is also on their tax assessment. So we're just trying to manage everyone's expectations with values, and a rule of thumb, a lot of values are coming in below their assessments now, especially in the West, Vancouver, Richmond, Burnaby, North Vancouver, Surrey, Langley, Abbotsford, they're still a little bit at or above their assessed value.
I find that's a challenge with people. Sort of it's a mental thing to get over, that typically your assessment would be 10-20% below what you could actually sell for, and now not so.
Yeah, I never prescribed to that rule of the 10%. It was a handy rule just to kind of get the ball rolling, but as appraisers, we like to look at it from an appraisal perspective and rely the taxation value only on determining the taxes.
So as a mortgage broker, we know that you can only lend off the lesser of the purchase price or the appraised value. So what happens when, I buy at a reasonable price? I haven't come in, $200,000 over list, but I've come in at a reasonable price, but say your valuation is $50,000 lower than my offer. How do you, obviously the lender would probably come back to you and say, is there room to increase the value here? Like, how do you deal with this hurdle? Because again, you are independent.
We try to be very sensitive to these matters because it does happen. In fact, I did a presentation a couple of days ago, and there was a property just on Main Street in Vancouver, and this was to illustrate the change in values. It was a 33 by 122 foot lot with an old World War II bungalow in the 50s.
Yeah.
And it's one sold in July for 1.9. Almost the identical house sold end of December for 1.34.
Oh, wow.
So that's, 500 grand. And so that's huge, and that's what we're seeing. So our job is to provide a market value as of a certain date. So when you ask us to do an appraisal in January, we have to give you the value as of January 31st. The fact that you bought at market value in July is unfortunate because it was the peak of the market. You're going to probably have to come up with the difference and get that.
And it is what it is.
And it is what it is. Yeah. We can only do so much.
We advise clients of that, though. I make sure to absolutely to say if you're going in high, or it's a unique property where you might have to bid over what is reasonably going to be appraised, you can only lend off the lesser of the two.
Yeah, exactly.
So.
And I don't think there was lots of rational decision making going on in the spring summer market last year. It was insane, I think was the word everyone used.
So tell me, what is a retroactive appraisal?
A retroactive appraisal is basically a valuation of a property as of a historical date.
Okay.
So today's January 31st. What is your property worth April 4th, 2012?
Yeah.
We can get that value for you. In order to determine that value, we can either use the current condition of the property, so we can do an inspection and assume it was the same as of the valuation date, or we can look at photos that are available online as of that historical date and provide that date, or provide the value given that condition. And that is typically used for a capital gain situation. So if you did rent your place out on April 4th, 2012, and you don't want to be taxed on the entire increase in property value, we can give you a value.
How long does an appraisal take to do?
Typical rule of thumb, apartment is 5 to 10 minutes, townhouse 10 to 15 minutes, and a single family home under 30 minutes. Now that's your standard. Of course, it can deviate depending on the property. I've spent 2 hours at a property where there's lots of outbuildings, takes a lot of time to measure it, and lots of unique characteristics. But that's your average.
Do I need to clean up my home, put the laundry away?
You know what? Just give me a call. I'll come 20 minutes early and I'll clean up the place for you. It isn't important to have it clean, but tidy. I like to say tidy because we do want to see the flooring type. We want to see the counters. And we do want to see baseboard trim, that sort of thing. If there's clothes and stuff all over the counters, sometimes we can't see, and we might be a little more conservative on our valuation if the whole place is in disarray. Some other important things about an inspection is to have all the rooms accessible. So, back in the day, you could take pictures of 1 or 2 rooms and just do a walk around, and that was fine. Most banks require a photo of every room now, including your basement suites, including outbuildings. So just make sure the whole place is open for the appraiser to walk around, take notes, and take some photos. And
tenants are advised.
Tenants are advised is huge. Yeah. So we make that request when we are making the appointment, but it's important that homeowners are aware of that.
Okay. And who owns the appraisal? So every one of my clients, again, wants to see the appraisal because their sense of worth is tied in with the value of the home. So who owns it?
Yeah, that's understandable. And we get that call a lot too, is I paid for it. I want the appraisal. The owner of the appraisal is the person that initiates contact with the appraisal company. Typically, in our situation, it would be the mortgage broker. So the mortgage broker calls, asks for an appraisal. Oftentimes, it doesn't matter who pays for the appraisal. It's the person who initiates contact. So we send the appraisal to you. You are then the owner of the appraisal. So you can provide it to your client if you like. You can file it away. You can, do whatever you like. Use it as scrap paper. It's up to you. But you are the owner. And if the client calls us and asks for a copy, we have to defer back to yourself.
Okay. So, you've given a lot of information about what you do, but tell me why Adlaw. You've talked about systems and being able to accommodate rush files, multiple kinds of clients, mortgage brokers, investors, private lenders. So why Adlaw? Why should we hire Adlaw?
Yeah, over the years, I've been doing this for about 10 years. I think you could hire a monkey to do an appraisal and get it done within a couple of days. That's not the issue. Where we separate ourselves is we really try to make mortgage broker business is 90+% of our business. We try to make the mortgage broker look good. And from my experience in banking and outside sales is that if I could help our client, like I worked for Coca-Cola for 2 years, I was the Western Canadian Salesman of the Year. If I could help my client build their business, I actually sold more Coca-Cola. So if they were working on signage, if I had to help stack their chips or do whatever, if I had to come in on a Sunday, if I had to talk to them about their costs, maybe we'll get their costs down so we can increase their profits and make more money. I realized that connection quite early on in my career. So our level of service is just unparalleled. We will go above and beyond. The 11 p.m. phone call that I take, I'm happy to. The Sunday appointment, I'm happy to do. These rushes that, clients apologize, prophetically, I'm still happy to get it done, because we know that when they get that done, their client is happy, their client tells their neighbor, and they had a good experience with Mackenzie, and then you get busier, and in effect, we get busier. So it's just...
the volume ebbs and flows as well. So as we know, there are those late nights, early mornings, but then there's also the days where it is a little bit quieter, and then we take the time back for ourselves to balance out.
Exactly, go snowboarding.
But I know too, I've seen you, engaging in the podcasts, out at our trade shows, involved with us, and which means that you're approachable, the firm's approachable, and top of mind to make that first email, can you help us out? Can you get it done? And the answer has always been yes. So I, for one, am happy with Adlaw.
Yeah, one person said to me a couple of years ago, like, you guys just get it done. And we don't overthink the problem, we just get things done. And that's kind of what's made it successful over the years.
Great. So how does anyone reach you if they're looking to order directly with you?
Yeah, you can go online to our website at adlawappraisals.com. There is an online order page on the top level there. You can email me at info@Adlaw Appraisals, or you can give us a call, 604-809-8506. We'll be happy to chat.
Excellent. Well, thank you for being with us today.
Thanks,
appreciate it. Is there anything else we should know about you?
No, just everyone have an excellent day, and thanks for listening.
Excellent. So to reach me, all my contact information and links are all throughout our podcast website at ilovevancouverrealestate.ca or on my broker website at mackenziemortgage.com. Thank you for taking the time to be with us today, and a huge thank you to all our listeners. We trust that you can take some valuable information from our conversation today. Should you have any further questions, please reach out to Adam or myself directly. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, leave us a review, and share with your friends.